I think we need to come back to a path towards civility. A path toward actually listening to each other instead of criticizing our differences and attacking each other. I think politically right now, this country is just so on edge, in light of the recent events, namely the assassination of Charlie Kirk, which that was an assassination. It was just absolutely horrific what happened to him, and just on the human level. I mean, this guy, aside from his political beliefs, whether you agreed with him or not, this man had a family. He had a wife. He had 2 kids. And they were there, and they watched him die in cold blood. It's just horrific circumstances. And America's no stranger to these traumatic events in our politics. There's many examples of this. But it's interesting that the political figures and influencers in our society, the ones that often get their lives cut short in such tragic circumstances, are the ones that are advocating that we need to be speaking to each other. We need to be listening to each other more instead of causing endless divisions. It's toxic divisions. Look at MLK, what he stood for. Standing for equality, racial equality. Seeing each other as brothers and sisters by the content of their character, not by their skin. You had figures like JFK challenging the status quo and the elite in government, eliminating that, very dark undercurrents that is in the highest halls of power in the U.S. And look what happened to him. You had RFK, whose life was taken so short because he advocated bridging divisions, talking to each other, listening to each other, empathizing with each other. When we see it at this angle and in this lens, we come to find that, we have a lot more in common with each other than you really think. And honestly, I think the reason why we're so politically charged and divided is honestly because of social media and these endless algorithms that keep getting fed to us. It's stimulating our brains, and not in a good way. If you identify yourself as a conservative or liberal, whatever political faction that you side with, and you subscribe to that ideology or that thinking, and you follow influencers or political pundits that subscribe to your beliefs, well, the algorithm is going to keep feeding you influencers that you tend to agree with. So we get pigeonholed into these echo chambers in social media that suppresses us from being exposed to other viewpoints in politics, in economics, in social events. We're already forming our own biases, and that's very troublesome in this country. I think the assassination of Charlie Kirk is a wake-up call in this country to civility. This is a call to listening to each other, to empathizing with each other, talking to each other, instead of screaming at each other or resorting to violence. You know, it's what Kirk said best. The day that we stop talking to each other, that we stop listening to each other, that's when violence takes place. And violence will lead to, you know, the elimination of any civil discourse. So I plead to you, if you get anything out of this video, you know, anyone that you debate, whether if it's friends, family, acquaintances, just listen to them. Try to understand where they're coming from. Listen before you speak. Understand their viewpoints. You know, there's a saying that the truth always lies somewhere in between. It's not black and white, but it's somewhere in the middle. And I think the ultimate goal in political philosophy and in politics or any social event is to seek the truth together. Let's search for answers. Not by ourselves, not by one ideology, but through healthy debate, the wrestling of ideas, but in peaceful manners. This is a call to civility, guys. And this is just a reminder, let's just listen to each other. I hope you guys are safe.